Hello everyone, this is Isaac White from the Crockett Tavern Museum here in Morristown, Tennessee, and we want to welcome you all to yet another Fun Fact Friday. Now, before we dive into today's subject, I just want to go ahead and say that I forgot to do this at the beginning of the first video for the month of September, but I'm going to go ahead and rectify my error, and that is considering that all of our videos are going to be about medicine and medical practices of the time, well, as unpleasant as they may be, I intend to dedicate them all to any of my friends and family who are in the medical field. We hope you come across these videos, we hope you enjoy them, and we hope you really appreciate just how far medicine and medical practices have come since the time in which Crockett lived. But nonetheless, as we discussed in our previous video, we discussed the pros and contrasts of how one was able to get into practicing medicine. Of course, we know that one had to either go to medical school or they had to pay an experienced physician to study underneath them for about 7 years before obtaining their certificate of proficiency. Now, in our next episode, we're going to be talking about not the American physicians in hospitals, but also the Spanish physicians in hospitals. And folks, when I say you want to stay tuned, you really do, because the difference is like night and day. So we've talked about how these doctors, they were kind of different in their own way. We also talked about how anatomy lessons were practically non-existent. Rather, people would be focusing on studying philosophy, politics, and of course learning about medicine and surgery from the works of Galen and Hippocrates. Now, it's Galen that we really want to emphasize, although Hippocrates, his ode will be mentioned in the next video, because Hippocrates, he believed that you had to look to the spine for illness, and he also believed that the majority, if not all, of illnesses or ailments at the time could be treated with diet. So we'll be mentioning that briefly in the next few videos. But when it comes to Galen, it should be noted that Galen was the one who physicians swore by. He was the one who came up with what is known as the Galenic theory, or the humoral theory as it's called in some circles. This was a way of trying to help you understand how the body was built up. And Galen's theory was that internally, the body consisted of four liquids known as the humors, which were blood, phlegm, yellow, and black bile. Now, of course, if your humors were all in balance, then you were in good health. But if those humors were to get out of balance, well, you're going to be sick in one way, shape, or form. Now, of course, blood, which was the strongest, most prevalent humor, that one tended to be getting out of balance quite a bit. And we see that in many cases, people would have to go ahead and do whatever they could to redress the balance. And when it came to blood in particular, most people, they only think it's a joke in some way, shape, or form. But for those of you who know, bloodletting was not only a very common practice, but a very serious thing. And bloodletting could be performed in a variety of manners. We, of course, could use lancets or fleams to go into the veins and open them up to extract a certain amount of blood. We could also use leeches if need be. We could also use what was one of the most popular of bloodletting practices at the time, which is venesection. Of course, going in and cutting open the veins to drain the blood. Of course, there was also the manner of scarring and cupping, which was not as common, but what we do see is that the practice of venesection was the most popular of all. And as a matter of fact, it was the practice of venesection which led to the downfall of George Washington, which we will discuss in our next video about modern medicine.